What are you willing to do? Well, we want a loan for the whole amount.
Okay.
And we're able to make $300 a month payments.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll pay it off within, 5 years. And I'm like, okay, this is kind of a joke, but at least it keeps me busy. And I brought it to TJ, I brought it to the seller. And TJ came back to me, he's like, they're willing to do it, but they just need someone to pay their closing costs.
Yeah.
The closing costs are the realtor fees and the title fees. They just didn't want to bring a check to closing, but they were willing to, hey, someone could take this property, give us a monthly payment, as long as we start getting some for it.
Right.
And we eventually get our purchase price. And I was like, man, that is awesome. They are going to love this. Yeah. And I called back the people and I said, hey, they're willing to do it. They just need like $3,000 down to pay for the title and broker fees because it was a small purchase price. We only needed like 7%. And what they said was, we can't do that. And they hung up.
Okay.
And I was like, what? And I'm like, I got to do this then.
Yeah.
I got to figure out a way.
You're checking out the Investor Shed Podcast with Nick Beveridge and Jeremy Kitchen. They're on the path to financial freedom, and they're taking their community with them. Stay tuned for the best free real estate investing advice on the internet.
Holden was doing what? What are you saying?
Hillary was putting him in the car. And I was like, hey, Holden. And he just kind of stared at me. And she's like, he's a grump today. I'm like, oh, okay.
He's been a grump for a month.
Well, hi.
Yeah. He's becoming more and more grumpy every day.
It's weird. I didn't think he could ever get more grumpy.
Holden can do it. Hey, everybody.
Hey.
Welcome to the Investor Shed Podcast. I'm Nick Beveridge here with my beautiful co-host, Jeremy Kitchen. We were just talking about my son, Holden. And what was that again?
I think Holden's great. I really do. He just took grump against this morning, so I said hi to him, and he kind of gave me the angry old man little face, and I'm like, well, I'm going to say hi to the people I want to say hi to, and it doesn't matter if you say it back.
Yeah. My son is a terrible person lately. We just had his birthday, and every present he got, he was basically just pissed off and like threw it to the side until the last one was Luigi's Mansion 3. And then he got excited and acted like he loved us again. But
so note to self, just get Holden the Luigi's Mansion game, and he might love me.
Yep. Don't get any other present except for a Nintendo Switch game because it's just he's going to hate it.
Yeah.
That was what we learned. And maybe we should discipline him more. I don't know.
The old
he's 5.
Vinegar and water straight to the face. It's more effective than spanking, and you don't have to hit your kid.
And it doesn't leave any rashes or burns.
Yeah, no, it's completely food safe, right? So you can just spray your kid with vinegar. There's no rule that says you can't.
Oh, you're right. I love that about you because I think I've never heard that from anybody else, but you keep bringing it up, and I want to try it on cats first, and then I'll try my son.
The working system works on cats, works on kids.
Okay.
Says that on the bottle.
All right. So, everybody, we have an episode about creative finance today. What do you think? You want to hear about creative finance?
Do you want all the juicy secrets of creative financing? We've got them.
Yes. And just about every topic we're going to talk about today, every technique, I personally have done, or Jeremy.
Yeah.
Except for one, and that is what we're going to talk about, assuming loans.
Yeah.
I think we've done everything else, which is kind of cool. We'll get to really dive in deep as you want, Jeremy.
Yeah.
You can go in as deep as you want into my head.
I typically don't go too deep. I don't want to be in there too long, man.
Hope everybody had a great Christmas, great New Year's. It's time to get started 2024.
Let's go.
In 2024, if you're buying properties, because mortgages are still extremely high, I hope this episode really helps show that there's a lot more. We are going to talk about subject to, but there's a lot more creative ways to buy properties other than just sub to.
Right.
Here we go. So the first one we are going to chat about is simply a cash out refi.
Ooh.
Have you ever done a cash out refi?
I have not done a cash out refi.
Are you sure about that?
I guess I have. I have done a cash out refi, but I think we were going to talk about it as a different category. So, like, I haven't done one where I've physically taken my own property. The one that we did was a partnership, of course. But we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. So, let's talk about the cash out refinances that you've done, though.
Okay.
And how they've been beneficial to you.
So the very first one I did was roughly 9 years ago or so. And I bought this property out in Osborne, Idaho for $29,000. got a really good deal at. But at the time, properties were selling for about that.
Right.
In Osborne and the surrounding areas. But I just saw potential with this property because it wasn't a piece of crap that was falling apart. And I saw the history of me being an agent. I can pull up like its history. And I saw that just like 10 years prior to that, it was renovated and a lot of the big things were done.
Yeah.
And this house was in pretty good shape structurally. And all the fundamentals of a house build. It actually had a solid roof at the time, like 10 years prior. It was a brand new rubber roof.
Okay.
And it was a flat roof with a rubber roof. And a lot of people would, because they're just not sure how they work, they'd stay away from it. But with me talking with home inspectors all the time, I've got to learn that a rubber roof actually lasts a lot longer than a normal roof. It could last like 50, 60 years.
Okay.
So I was comfortable with that. And it really... The entire time I owned it, I actually just recently sold it. I think I had one roof repair that cost me $300.
Sure.
So I'm glad I bought that property because I was able to do a cash out refi on it twice.
Awesome. Okay.
Yes.
And this is the one, I think we've referenced it in previous episodes as well, but this is your best remote employee, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I did a little presentation on it at the time because it really kind of helped springboard a lot of the investments that I have today, and even my own personal house. We weren't able to buy that without having the income from that rental property and the cash down that generated when I did the cash out refi. So that one property that I bought with $6,000 of my brother's money. So this is how I bought it. It was advertised, I think, for $60,000 when it was first listed. And then it was owned by the Idaho Housing and Finance
Okay.
Agency, IFHA.
Okay,
I screw it up, but those are the words. Maybe out of order.
Okay.
IFHA, I think, is what it's called. It was owned by that entity, and they were just, I knew, and there were more bank-owned properties at the time, that they would just continue to drop the price until they sold the property.
Right.
And in this area of town, not much was going on. And I just kind of had my eyes on it, and I saw that they dropped it to 33 grand. And then I went back and forth with the asset manager on this one as soon as it dropped to 33, and I got to walk through it. I made an offer for like 26 grand or something like that.
Okay.
And they countered at like 32, and they said, this is the best we're going to do.
Right.
And then I countered again, not giving a crap what they say, because I know I've been in the game long enough to know when somebody says this is the best we're going to do, they can probably do a little better.
Right.
And we went back and forth for like a week and a half. And I would just continue to send a new offer really close to what mine was, but just go up a little bit.
Right.
We eventually landed on 29 grand,
Cool.
$29,250 to be exact.
Okay.
And I didn't have that money back then.
Yeah. Right.
I had some cash into another investment. I was flipping houses exclusively at the time. But I knew my brother had a little extra cash, and I asked, hey, could I borrow $6,000? I've got this hard money lender who's willing to do a loan for, I think the loan was, for close to 40 grand.
Okay, for rehab, everything like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
But they needed like 6 grand cash in.
Sure.
And so I borrowed the money from my brother. I paid him back like, I think a $500 bonus at the time or something like that after I got the property fixed up. It needed about $14,000 in work. And I wasn't able to refinance it because I didn't qualify for a normal mortgage.
Sure.
For about a year and a half.
Okay.
Now I was assuming that I can refinance it after 6 months, but I bought it in an LLC name, and after I owned it for a year, and that's when I was at the point where I was able to qualify for a mortgage.
Okay.
And I went through the whole loan game, and when they finally said you're approved, wait, hold on, you have it in your LLC name. It needs to be in your personal name, and it needs to be seasoned for 6 months or something like that. So I had to wait like another 6 months at the time. Things have changed a little bit, but I had to wait a full 18 months to refinance it, and then it appraised at $84,000.
Okay.
and I was able to leave my payment the same. My payment was, no, I'm sorry. The payment did go up a little bit. The payment was like $300 or I can't exactly remember. It was under 400.
It's pretty good.
It was under 400. I was paying the taxes and insurance on the side, but I had a renter within a couple of months paying $850 a month.
Okay.
And so it was cash flowing for a year and a half.
Sure.
It wasn't really costing me much money.
Yeah.
And then after I did that refi, it appraised at $84,000. I was able to take the cash. I think it was around $20,000 in cash I was able to pull out.
Okay.
And that helped me buy my personal house.
Yeah.
So my personal house I bought for $262,000 at the time. It was brand new construction in Coeur d'Alene Place. And to have the money to put down on it and the cash flow to qualify, that property really helped because that was my down payment money plus a little extra bonus.
Yeah.
I think my down payment I needed was closer to $15,000 or something.
Sure.
But yeah, great first property to buy. Obviously, it was cheaper back then, but at the time, people still thought it was overpriced.
Yeah.
You know, times change.
Yeah, $29,000 house, is not overpriced anymore.
Yeah, well, 33,000 people thought it was overpriced.
Sure.
Yeah, that's how stingy people were. So.
Wow. No, pretty wild. And I think the key takeaways with that too, Nick, since we're talking specifically about creative financing on this one, you got a good property under contract.
Yeah.
And you utilized the resources you had. So you had your brother who offered to loan you $6,000, right? So you gave him $500. You're giving him roughly a 10% annualized return.
It was still a good return for him. Yeah.
Not too bad to give out $6,000.
And it didn't take long.
Yeah.
I think I was able to pay him back we were closing on a flip soon anyway. I think I only needed to borrow it for like a month or two.
Sure. Yeah, not a bad return then if you're looking at it for just a month or two. But the creative thing, like I said, is you found somebody who had the missing piece you needed.
Yes.
And the missing piece you needed wasn't like a big giant down payment or anything. It was just a little bit of an entry fee to get in. And that entry fee has catapulted you into where you are today.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
And we can talk about it later as well, but the things you've done with your own personal house, you've refinanced that as well, and that debt has snowballed forward 100%, 1,000,000%.
Yeah, I've done this strategy at least 8 or 10 times on other properties where you're making improvements, and then you get your property to appraise for more than what you owe, ideally 30% more than what you owe or more.
Yeah.
That way, when you get in a 70% or 80% loan, whatever cash is left over, that can come back to you in what's called the cash out refund proceeds. And what's awesome about that is tax-free.
Tax-free, 100%.
Absolutely tax-free because it's debt. But when you get into a really good position on a property and the tenants can pay for the debt, and you get a loan like this, it's still a very safe loan because you have a good amount of equity in the loan.
Right.
You still have most of my properties, when I did a cash out refi, they're almost always around 70%.
Sure.
Not the cash out refi. I would get approximately a loan for 70%.
Yeah. Okay.
The equity is about 30.
Sure. And that makes sense too. And that way you're not over leveraging your properties because, if you were to go more than that, you would probably need to do like an FHA loan or something.
Yeah.
So, and I think when you cash out refi, you need to, is it up to 80% of the value or 70% of the value? Is that
it can be up to 80. It depends on what you are approved for and the type of loan you're going after.
Right.
That same property, when I refinanced it the second time, it appraised for $212.
Okay.
I refinanced it a few years later. I was able to pull another good amount of cash out. I can't remember how much, but I only got a loan for $138 at the time. I got a 60% loan, and my interest payment, or my principal, mortgage, and interest, and all that stuff, I remember it stayed the same.
Okay.
And it was at a lower interest rate.
That's awesome.
And I had 40% equity still.
That's so cool.
And I was able to take that and buy other properties.
Yeah.
But this basic strategy of buying a discounted property, making improvements, and then doing the cash out refi and being able to have excess proceeds that are tax free, and I was able to go do that again.
Yeah.
I was able to do that, 20, 30 times over the course of a few years. And that's how I became a net worth millionaire.
Sure. Yeah, you kind of rinse and recycle the money.
Yeah.
I would like to say a word of caution on cash out refis because it all sounds good on paper, right? But what Nick's saying too is it can go the opposite way as well.
Yes.
So say you have a really good mortgage. Say you had a 4% interest rate, right? If you refinanced and interest rates were 6.5%. right? And you tried to get out $20,000 cash or whatever that number is, right? Like your principal, interest, taxes, insurance are going to go up as well because your interest has gone up. So it's something you have to really run the numbers on before you really take out all of the equity or all of the cash in your property.
Yeah. And this doesn't always work out great. I mean, timing can suck sometimes because I probably had 7 or so of these projects in 2020, 2021 that I bought that I just took a little bit too long to get them fully improved. And then when it came time to do the refi, rates have went way up and values have came down. So I actually had to sell a lot of those properties.
Yeah.
And that's what ended up. And then some of the other spec builds is what really got me in trouble.
Sure.
Is just new construction that I didn't know a whole lot about. I hired people that had very little experience.
Right.
I partnered with people that had less experience than I thought, and things just didn't work out the way I thought, and I did overdo it.
Right.
And that's what caused me to almost lose my fortune, but I'm still doing pretty good.
Yeah, you're doing great.
I've got like 5 rentals plus my house.
Right. You're doing great.
I'm finally out of the weeds.
Yeah. I love to see it too. It's good to see for sure. And again, just that word of caution I wanted to say, like you don't have to take out all the equity. Like the more equity you have, the more obviously your net worth is technically, but you shouldn't have to utilize all of that. Be smart when you're doing these things. Yeah. Obviously talk with your financial assistants or your CPAs, or just make sure you're running your numbers because you can get into trouble, but it can also make you millions in the long run. So again, just run your numbers.
And most of the time banks aren't going to give you more than 80% anyway.
Right.
That's where HELOC can come in, depending on if it's a personal property or an investment property.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's our next topic. Let's talk about HELOCs because you were able to create a small fortune using your HELOC.
Yeah, small fortune for sure.
Better than most. Better than most people are able to utilize.
Absolutely. And if you've listened to the story before, obviously, so what happened is my wife and I, we bought a house we got under contract in August of 2020 for a house when my wife and I were still dating. We finalized that purchase in January 2021. By January 2022, we just bought a new construction house in Rathdrum, Idaho. Nothing fancy, nothing crazy. We honestly bought what we could afford at the time. Like, what can we get into and how can we get into a house? And we got in. Within 12 months, we had almost $200,000 of equity just because the market shot up.
Yeah. Yeah, you got lucky.
That was lucky. Like I can't say like timing the market or anything like that. Like we got in at a time when we saw the greatest run up in appreciation we've seen.
Yeah.
And we absolutely took advantage of that opportunity because if we didn't, we'd be stupid.
Yeah, and here's the difference. Like that happened to everybody who owned a home.
Yep.
That happened to everybody that owned a home in America.
Yeah.
But you and Sam utilized the equity instead of just sat on it or cashed out refi to buy a boat.
Right.
You guys bought investments
We did.
with the equity. And you want to start with the first time you put the money to use?
So the first time we put the money to use, I know we have a lot of subjects to talk about on this one, so I'll kind of make it kind of brief. But the first thing we did, as soon as we got that HELOC, I remember bursting in your office. I'm like, we got our HELOC, who wants money?
Yeah.
Because
Which is a great way to market yourself when you have money, is to say, I've got this amount of money ready, and I'm willing to do investments. If you didn't say that, you probably wouldn't be in the position you were.
Right. I think you have to really go after what you want.
Yeah.
And like what we wanted to do was an investment and partner with people, and we're going to talk about that later as well. An opportunity came where we could buy a house for first position lien that was probably worth $250,000. I think we bought it for $120,000.
Yeah.
We just gave them really good terms. The investors on Nick's team, they flipped the house very quickly. We got our money back within 3 months, and I think we made an extra like $16,000 just by lending out our HELOC.
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah, not too shabby. And then we've done other things. Obviously, we've done partnerships and joint ventures with Nick and just other random things that have tried to catapult us and keep us afloat. The thing about HELOCs, though, is the variable interest rate. So that's where people can get in trouble.
Here's the con.
Yeah, there's a con with all this stuff, right? Like we're using debt, which is, we're utilizing our equity, which is lowering our net worth.
Yep.
But we're making solid investments with it.
And it's not a fixed rate, but the money that you pull out, is that a fixed rate?
No.
No? Okay, so if you pull out money, then you're using it, the rate could go up.
Yeah, correct. And I learned that the hard way because I had no idea at the time when we got it. You don't know what you don't know, and sometimes bank verbiage isn't exactly clear.
Yeah. Now, do they max it at a certain, like if you took out you thought it was 4% or 5%, and you took out $100,000 and you're working on an investment, what's like the maximum it could go up? Do you know?
That's a good question. I think the maximum. I'm not sure, actually. I can't.
But
really
there is
speak on
max,
maximum.
right?
There is a max, but I know they typically hover about a point above prime. So if your prime interest rate is 7, you're looking about at 8% on your HELOC.
So it just kind of goes up with the market.
So it does go up with the market, and it fluctuates.
Yeah.
And that's
it's not like they're just sitting back there and they're like, "Fuck this guy, crank up the rate now that he's using it."
Yeah, sometimes it feels like that, but it does go with the market for sure. So like when we first started lending it out, it was at 3.5% interest. Like that's free money, right? Like we can do this all day. And then it started going up to 4 and 5 and 6, and then I'm like, all right, we got to be careful about what we're doing. Now the balance is at almost 9. I haven't checked if it went down recently, like if it actually goes down with Prime, but it has been going up with Prime. Since Prime has gone down a little bit, I should actually check that.
All right.
But so you can do a lot of things with the equity. You can partner, you can do private money lending, you can use that as a down payment for another property. Whatever option you want, like you have that equity available, and it's so easy to pull out and use.
Yeah. So how many deals were you able to get involved with just by having this one HELOC on your house?
I've lost track, but probably 6 or 7 so far.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And I mean, like if I'm making $10,000 to $15,000 per deal, roughly, and I've made more, a little less on some. Like that's probably gotten us about $100,000 just out of money that isn't mine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's your equity.
It's my equity.
It's your credit card.
But yeah, it's a credit card, but it's like not my balance. Like it's not my actual savings, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And it's not like you're the first person to do this.
Right.
If you listen to our episode with Sean Dolan, we just had him back recently. He tells the story about how he was able to grow his portfolio. He's got like 90 almost paid off rentals.
Yeah.
Makes $40,000 a month cash flow. And it all started with he got a HELOC on his house, and he used that HELOC as down payment money to buy a couple of duplexes in Spokane. And it grew from there.
Yep. And then he refinanced
and
duplexes.
Refinancing. And what he did was he just kept reinvesting the money that he made.
Right.
And now he's at a point where he's got fuck you money, and he acts like it too, and it's awesome.
I love it.
Oh, no, he doesn't act like it. I don't think he really spends his money much, but
he's
got that. He's very humble, and he's got that. Obviously, he's super confident.
Yeah.
And it comes across that he's just bulletproof.
Right.
Thanks to cash flow.
Yeah, absolutely.
And thanks to and it all started with that HELOC.
Yep. He wouldn't have been able if he didn't utilize his equity. Like you think about these people, like how would they have gotten past that hump?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people can get hung up on that hump.
Yeah, they don't know where to start. Or how do I get the money to start? That's another way.
Right.
Get a HELOC on your house. All it takes is applying at more than one bank sometimes.
Yep.
Because you applied at more than one bank.
Yep, we applied at 3. And the first 2 gave us, like, the first one offered, they said no. And then the second one said we'd give you $20,000. And then the third one's like, you guys can have $170,000.
Yeah.
Great.
So that's the great thing about getting loans. If you don't like the answer you get, just try somebody else.
Yep.
There's a lot of people out there, a lot of banks, a lot of entities out there that want to lend their money to you.
Yeah. And I would say start with the banks or the credit unions or the financial institutions that you already have a reputation with and you've already built rapport with. Start with people you've worked with, because those people are going to know who you are and they're going to judge your character accordingly.
Yep.
Yep. So what do we got next? We got
personal loans.
Personal loans. Okay.
This one, I don't think many people talk about this in general, or what's the difference. A personal loan is simply just a person who gives you a loan, and it's not necessarily tied to a particular property. Now, I've been doing this for a while now, at least probably 3 years now. I've got this lady's money, and she loves it because she gets a check every month in the mail, full interest check. We've gone back and forth on different like reasons why I need the money, but she just loves the idea of having, like right now it's about $900 a month in interest that she gets in the mail.
Cool.
Off of a roughly, I think it was a $90,000 loan right now.
Sure.
I think she gets close to $900.
Okay. Are you giving
think
like
that's
10% annualized or
I think it's 12.
12? Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah. So
cool.
Sorry if I'm mistaken on that, but I'm pretty sure it's $900 that comes out of my account every month, and I have a balance right now of $90,000. And I've been able to just move that, money from kind of property to property.
Right.
The most recent time when I got that loan with her, it wasn't 90 at first, but I bought this property, another property in Osborne, really close to that other house.
Okay.
And it was a sub-2 opportunity. With this sub-2 opportunity, These guys needed about 35 grand between what they owed on their mortgage and what we were willing to pay for the property. I bought the property for like 100 grand, and they only owed, I think 60 or so, 60 something.
Gotcha.
So I needed about $35,000 to take this property over subject to, and they were totally willing to let me just take over the mortgage.
Nice.
So what I did was I used a combination of that sub to and a personal loan. I got a personal loan from this lady.
Yep.
And I paid her 10%. I think it was a $350 payment. And then the other loan that I took over was around $400 or so.
Okay.
So combined, it was about $850 in payments that were going out to the lender and this personal lender.
Yep.
The lender being the bank, and then this lady.
Yep.
And the rental income that was already coming in on this house that needed no work. I did a little bit of work just to pump up the value before I wanted to refi it.
Yeah.
But it was already bringing in $850 a month in rental income. Now, if you do the math, I was actually losing a little bit just in property management. I was losing about like $80 a month. It wasn't much, but at the end of the year with depreciation and all that stuff, I was making money.
Right. Of course.
And what I did was I think I spent about 8 months or so. I told her I'm not going to keep this loan long, but what I want to do is I just want to paint the exterior of the property and then and then do a refi.
Okay.
I wanted to paint the exterior of the property because that was the only thing that was kind of ugly about this property.
Yeah.
And I knew that if an appraiser saw it's been recently painted and then the inside's not bad at all, that thing should be. I think I imagined it would at least appraise for 150 or something like that.
Okay.
Ended up appraising it like 190,
That's
200,
awesome.
something like that. And I was able to, when I refinanced it, I was able to pull an additional 40 grand out of the property, got a new loan. The thing is cash flowing now just by a little bit.
Sure.
It's cash flowing now by $100 or so. And then I was able to take that loan that I got from Nancy and put it on a development.
Okay.
And I put her money in there. And she's still getting that check. And we actually upped it a little bit because she had some more money she wanted to put in.
Awesome. Okay.
And for the last couple of years, she's been getting $900 a month. But that property that I got involved with, we bought a property out in Post Falls for 700 grand. We put about $800,000 in improvements in it, and we're selling it to a home builder for $3.5 million.
Okay.
I'm a smaller partner in it, but thanks to that personal loan, it kind of got me involved in that.
Yeah. That's
And
awesome.
going to be making some decent change, even while paying her interest for the last 2 years.
Right. Of course.
And then she'll get paid off at that point.
That's
and
cool.
then this property is closing this month.
Very cool. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
I didn't
My
know
first
it was closing.
development.
Yeah. First and
Yeah.
last, right?
No, it probably won't be my last. This one was an easy setup. It was already approved by the city.
Okay.
We just took a while to make adjustments, and then we had to shop contractors quite a bit because the development game was really hard to find somebody that wasn't going to charge $2 million.
Right.
Yeah.
And what I will say about personal loans, like Nick has the status of being able to complete a project, right? If you're looking to use personal loans, make sure you can put your money where your mouth is. Basically, don't just take people's money without a plan.
Yeah. And we had a personal note.
Right. Of course, you got a promissory note and everything.
Yeah,
like
the
that.
difference with this, like a loan setup like this that most people would think of, they think, okay, you sell the property, you have to pay that loan back. No, we had a promissory note that she's lending me this money at this interest rate, and there's a set expiration date of the note ending. And what we did was just every year we just kind of kick it another year.
Yeah,
and it could be paid off at any time.
Sure,
it's a simple loan.
Yeah, easy peasy.
1-page agreement.
1-page agreement.
Yep.
I don't love that, buddy. But
it was simple.
Sure. But what I'm saying, like with personal loans, like if you don't have any money and you don't have any experience, like I would advise against getting a personal loan to make a property.
Yeah, you should have some experience.
Unless you can talk the talk and walk the walk. And that's what Nick could do. You had the investments, you had everything already put into place where like $900 a month on an interest rate on a personal loan isn't going to kill you at all.
Right.
Because your properties, even the one property you were holding it on was basically making that.
Yeah.
And you had other things going for you. So and that's just a lesson in like, don't get over leveraged with it, and don't just be honest with your intentions and be honest with your skill level, especially when talking to and trying to pursue private money and everything like that.
Yeah. And you've got to be ultra confident about your exit strategy and that you will be able to get them their money back within a certain amount of time. And you also have to put in the cautions out there and make sure that this person's comfortable with it, that you're investing the money into real estate.
Yep.
And things don't always go the way they're planned to.
Yep.
And sometimes there are delays in real estate, almost every time. And are they comfortable, if it does go longer, making more interest as time goes on?
Right.
And you got to find people that are comfortable with that don't need the money right away and would prefer to just get the interest checks in the mail.
Yeah. And I've even set up, like, we talked about a little bit about my HELOC. Like, we've got a personal loan out of my HELOC to you, too.
Yeah.
And that's something that, we've reevaluated. You've paid off some. We've given you more. And then we've just reevaluated the promissory note and kept it going. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you have a plan, right? And
right. And this money is not going towards Teslas. Right. It's not going towards boats.
Yeah.
It's all going to, assets that appreciate in value and that spit off cash flow.
Right.
Or they're being improved and going to be flipped.
Right. And the key takeaway with that, too, is, like, I trust you. Right.
I trust you, too.
I trust you. Thank you. But, like, you've got the track record. You know what you're doing. And even if you failed, which I don't think you're going to, you would find a way to make it right.
Yes. And that's happened before. Yes. I have failed before, but I don't think I've failed at paying people back.
I agree. But with personal loans, like, you can tie that to property as well. Like, it can. Is that still a personal loan if you get a lien on a property with it?
Yeah, you can absolutely easily, and a title company can help you out with it. Yep. Record a lien against a property. A deed of trust is what they would call it.
Yep.
We did this with my mom to protect her interest on a property that we borrowed the money for the land, and then we got a loan for the construction.
Okay.
We built a house up in Sandpoint, and my mom's money was tied up for quite a while because this house took a long time to get done. And we did not, she was only a joint venture. It wasn't until things started going wrong until I said, hey, let's get you on title.
Sure.
And we had the title company. They did it for free. It was nice.
Yeah.
But they got her in a position to where when that property closes, the title company is going to pay her off. Not just, she doesn't have to trust me and my partners to pay her off because I was in bed with partners that could care less if certain people got paid or not. So I had to go that extra step to make sure I had protected her.
Yeah, and that's good of you to do. So yeah, I think that covers personal loans then. So
yeah, that does. Hey, quick commercial break here. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I really do appreciate it. If you want to give back, let me help you buy a house, or I can help you sell a house. It's the only way I make money when I'm not investing in real estate. I don't make money on this podcast or the events I do, but I do make money only when I help people buy and sell houses. So if you're looking for your next investment and you're here in North Idaho, I want to help you personally. If you are not in North Idaho, I can still help you out. I have a vast network of referral partners all across the country in Keller Williams Realty, and I can find the right real estate investor savvy agent for you so you don't have to. Doesn't cost you a thing. Thank you for your support. Back to the show. We want to talk now about seller financing. This was how I acquired my very first fix and flip, but I wasn't able to do anything until I had the money for renovation.
Sure.
I bought a property in Rathdrum once in 2014, and I was on a real estate team, TJ Barnhart's team. Shout out to TJ, now owned by Jason Walker. Shout out to Jason Walker.
Shout out to Jason Walker.
And Will, who is going to run his team one day.
Yeah.
Enough shout outs. Let's talk about this property. So we had this listing, and it was a house for $40,000, and it was disgusting. Nasty cat house.
Okay, cat house.
A small little place in the city of Rathdrum, like right in like behind the police station on 2nd Street. And I would show it every once in a while because I got the sign calls. And I would show it to random people and potentially they would almost always want to maybe make an offer. And then they're like, this place is just too disgusting. It should be torn down, whatever. And they walk away. There was this one set of people that were in the trailer park right nearby. And they came and they wanted to make an offer, but they didn't have any money. And I said, well, you can see if they'll try seller financing, maybe. Yeah. And she's like, oh, okay, how does that work? Well, you just ask them to finance how much you can afford.
Right. Put it in second position.
Yeah, basically just the seller owns the property right now, free and clear. And you can just make an offer with, hey, I need a loan for blank. I'll be willing to make you these amount of payments.
Yeah.
And it will be paid off by blank.
Right.
And so we had to answer those 3 questions with what are you willing to do? Well, we want a loan for the whole amount.
Okay.
And we're able to make $300 a month payments.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll pay it off within, 5 years. And I'm like, okay, this is kind of a joke, but at least it keeps me busy. And I brought it to TJ, I brought it to the seller. And TJ came back to me, he's like, they're willing to do it, but they just need someone to pay their closing cost.
Yeah.
The closing costs are the realtor fees and the title fees. They just didn't want to bring a check to closing, but they were willing to, hey, someone could take this property, give us a monthly payment, as long as we start getting some for it.
Right.
And we eventually get our purchase price. And I was like, man, that is awesome. They are going to love this.
Yeah.
And I called back the people and I said, hey, they're willing to do it. They just need like $3,000 down to pay for the title and broker fees because it was a small purchase price. We only needed like 7%. And what they said was, we can't do that. And they hung up.
Okay.
And I was like, what? And I'm like, I got to do this then.
Yeah.
I got to figure out a way. But I was an agent and half of that commission was going to me.
Yep.
And I'm like, well, maybe I only need to come up with a couple thousand then.
Yeah.
And I remember coming up with the money eventually. I think it was in collusion with Sean. I think we both put a certain amount of money. I partnered with my brother, but
Sure.
we were able to structure this to where we came up with the broker's commission. Half of it was mine. The other half was TJ's.
Yeah, right.
It was our listing, so there was no other broker to pay. And I think he even was able to take a smaller fee. He didn't care. He was like, cool, get this property, flip it.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I had to come up with the title money. And I remember getting this at the same terms, basically. And I think we had 2 years to pay it off.
Okay.
So what we did was we got a loan for $40,000, and there were $300 a month payments, and we had 2 years to pay it off.
Okay.
Now, I did not have the money to renovate the property, but at least I got to sit on this property for $300 a month while I figured out how to get the money.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was after we fixed it. We flipped our first house with hard money, and then we had the cash eventually after we flipped that house to come back to this one.
Then you roll it all in.
Yeah.
Question about that loan. So obviously, when you're paying $300 a month, was it interest only at that time, or was it amortized to end up paying it off? Do you remember?
I think it was amortized.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it was interest only.
That's awesome. So I mean, even if you're paying...
Well, I might be wrong.
Okay.
I can easily just go back to the old statement and just see what the payoff was if it was less than 40. I have a feeling it was when we paid it off, it was less than 40,000 though. So we might have amortized it.
Okay.
We might have just had a drawn out like 30-year
Sure.
thing on it, but I can't remember. But it wouldn't have mattered.
Sure.
I mean, if you're fixing and flipping a property, if it's amortized or not, because that money's just going to pay down the loan,
Right.
So that but you're still paying the same amount of interest,
Right,
on
of
the
course.
loan amount.
And I think the takeaway with that, like, you don't know if you don't ask, right? And,
Yes.
And like the whole thing, like, this was set up for one of your clients so they could get a house, and they ended up backing out because of a $3,000 difference.
Entry fee,
Right.
Yeah,
And you
super
just
small entry fee.
You've already done all the negotiating and everything with the client at that point.
Yeah.
Like, hey, why don't I just take this?
Yeah, and that was another light bulb that went off because it was kind of earlier. I think I was only 3 years in to be an agent at that time, but it's like, man, being a real estate agent is pretty helpful if you want to be an investor because you can come across great opportunities one way or another.
Yep.
I remember, just a couple of months prior to that, or maybe it was after. Yeah, it was after that we got our first fix and flip. We did it with a hard money loan with very little down.
Sure.
And we can talk about that later.
Yeah,
So that's seller financing. Sure. And since then, I've been able to structure it a few more times.
Yeah. And I think that's awesome, too, because like you said, like being an agent gave you a little bit of a leg up, too, because you were able to use your agent commission towards the closing costs.
Yeah.
And again, like the having an agent or being an agent, if you're going to be buying and flipping and renovating houses, like it can save you a lot of money in the long term.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And here's another cool thing. One of my most recent seller financings, I was partnered with Josh Cote, and he structured this deal. So I can't take all the credit.
Sure.
But I was fortunate enough to be involved with it and pay for the renovation and stuff and ended up kind of coordinating a lot of the construction.
Yeah.
typical, but anyway, he was able to structure this house in Spirit Lake, seller financing, 30 years, interest rate 0.
Yeah.
So the difference with this fix and flip that kind of took way too long was instead of the holding costs killing us, didn't kill us at all. The holding costs, other than like utilities, the holding cost was actually very, every time I had to make an $800 payment on this house, it paid down the balance.
Yeah, that's super cool.
So when we went to sell the property, we were just, it's not like I wasted 8 months of interest.
Right.
There was no interest.
Yeah.
So every payment I made just brought the balance down, which most of my deals that I had going on the last couple of years, the longer I held onto a property, the more expensive it was and the more money I lost.
Right. Yeah. No, that was a cool structure. I'm glad you guys got that one done too. So.
Yeah.
But let's keep this process moving. We've got like a lot to cover, I think, and we're going deep on some of these, which is good.
Yes. Okay, so the next one we're barely going to touch on, and this is assuming existing mortgages. So this is different from subject 2. This is where if a seller has a property and they've got a good mortgage on it, and they want somebody to buy the house, or they're willing to let them just take over the mortgage, and the bank is too.
Yes.
That's the difference between this and subject 2, that the bank approves the new buyer to just take over the mortgage that's currently in place.
That makes sense. Yeah. And it's a completely different thing, right? So like when you're doing subject 2, a lot of that's kind of like, okay, you're paying the bills and you're paying the mortgage on the client's behalf or on the homeowner's behalf. And that can obviously trigger due on sale. All this can. But an assumable mortgage cannot trigger a due on sale clause because you're getting bank approval, right?
Yeah.
So you're actually going the legal, I mean, not that sub 2 is illegal or anything, but you're going like the
You're not
paper trailed way of being approved for a house.
Yeah, you're not breaching any contracts.
Right, exactly.
And when you do a sub 2, most of the time you're breaching the due on sale clause.
Yes.
Or not necessarily breaching it, but they just have the right to take over the mortgage.
Whenever it switches entities, it can trigger due on sale clause.
Yeah,
So.
and I'm sorry, not take over the mortgage. They have the right to call the note due.
Yes,
is what I meant to say. But here are some loans that are assumable by nature that typically up front, in the closing disclosure, when you get a new loan, it will tell you, is this loan assumable or not? The loans that are, for sure, FHA loans.
Yep.
VA loans, and USDA loans. FHA loans are very common. It's an easier way to get into a home these days with very little money down, 3.5%, sometimes 0.5%. VA loans are an easy way for veterans to get into a home.
Yes.
0% down, usually great interest rates, sometimes no, depending on if they're on disability or not. Sometimes there's no guarantee fee, that annual, like a mortgage insurance charge.
Sure.
And then USDA loans. Some people don't even know that the USDA does home loans. They're not as common these days because prices have gone up so much, and people who would normally qualify for a USDA loan, they need, their total household income has to be like under 72 grand.
Okay.
And if your total household income is under 72,000, you're probably not getting a loan these days because interest rates are so high and property prices are so high. But there's a lot of them out there, especially like if you're here locally, anywhere outside of Coeur d'Alene and Hayden, people can get USDA loans, even in Post Falls. That's considered a rural area.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
And with these loans, hopefully they come back in style because they're great. You don't have to put anything down. Is 0%. It's 100% like the VA. There's a guarantee fee annually, like mortgage insurance.
Yeah.
But typically it's better than FHA and it's a lower holding cost.
Sure. And you guys did a USDA. You didn't take it over, like it wasn't an assumable loan, but you guys got a USDA loan on the one up in Bonners Ferry, correct?
Yeah. Well, that was a foreclosure that the USDA foreclosed on.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So basically I know a few of the asset managers in the state of Idaho, and I'm on a couple of these hidden lists.
Nice.
Hey, if you're out there and if you're listening to this, big secret for the 14 of you that might hear this, try to get on some USDA asset managers emails list.
Cool.
For these distressed assets that randomly come out.
Do you have any advice on how to do that?
Yep. Search ChatGPT or search the internet. You'll be able to do it.
Okay. Cool.
a lot easier than me trying to explain it or sending you the context I have.
Sure. So, yeah,
but if you just Google it, yeah, USDA has a website that you can get on and get on a list.
That's awesome.
But it was how we were able to get a crazy good price on a flip up in Bonner's Ferry that like nobody knew about. And it was the heat of the market.
Yeah, it was.
And we bought a house for what, 140 something.
Yeah, it was right around there, I think.
We made over $100,000 on the house, and we had 11 days of renovation. We did a really cool video on it.
You did, yeah. You guys made more than that. Like I think like with the 3 partners, because it was you,
4 partners,
4 partners: Tyler, Dennis, you, and Joe. Right?
Yes.
Okay. And yeah, I think you guys each made like 65,000 each or something like that, right? I thought you made.
No,
a lot
I
of
think
money.
we all made like 28,000 or something like
Okay.
that. I think the total profits were around 120-ish.
Sure.
Something like that.
Okay.
It's in that video. We actually break down the number. You break down the numbers for us because you edited the video.
you sent me the numbers.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it took you guys 11 days to flip this property. Like it was balls to the wall for the contractors, Dennis and Tyler. But that was their role, right? Their role was to just work and kick ass on the property versus, you and Joe found it and put the deal together, and they came in with zero money. And for 11 days of work, made almost $30,000.
Yeah. It was a really cool structure because I found the deal. Dennis was newly on our team, and he's been asking to be a part of a flip. And so we structured a deal where I found something, and that was all I had to do was just get it under contract.
Yep.
And kind of help coordinate what we were going to do. But Joe did most of that too, and Joe put up the money for the renovation.
Okay.
And then Dennis and Tyler worked.
I love it.
And it was a really cool partnership.
Yeah.
Because we all knew our roles and we all did it really well.
Yep.
And we just hit a home run. It was great.
Yeah. Like, and it was great that I saw, I mean, I was an outsider on this one, but like you said, everyone did their roles exceptionally well.
Yeah.
There was no egos involved. There was no like, oh, I'm doing all the work or I found the thing. Like, it was like, this is what we laid out in our contract. Yeah. And y'all got it done very quickly and very efficiently.
Yeah. So creative strategy there. All I did was find the really good deal. I was on this hidden list that most people aren't on. Got a great deal under contract. We got a hard money loan for the full purchase price.
Yeah.
And
that's how good of a deal you
0
got.
points too. It was a really good hard money loan. So that was just kind of the strategy there. And Joe, one of the partners, brought all the money for the renovation. It was one of those deals where I didn't have any skin in the game other than finding the deal. Walked away like a month or two later with $28,000 or something like that.
Yeah. It sold pretty quick, right?
Yeah. Not too bad.
Yeah.
So
Pretty good.
anyway, that is assumable loans.
Yeah.
Lease options to purchase is another creative way to buy property. Have you haven't done one of these, right?
I have not done a lease to own or lease financing or anything like that. No.
Yeah, I haven't either, but I've taken a lot of courses on it, and I was able to teach Joe to do it on one of these properties that she was buying up in. She bought this Airbnb property in Sagal on Bottle Bay.
Oh yeah.
That has a really nice house with a great view of the water. And it was priced around the $300,000-ish at the time. And then there's more land to go with it that was priced for a couple $100,000 across the street. And it was waterfront. You walk down to it. It's got a dock, and it's on, the Pondere Lake. It's just absolutely beautiful. And she was trying to figure out how to structure this because they had like a couple different listings in the MLS. They had it with the land and without. But she knew that as an Airbnb, it would perform so much better if it had that dock.
Oh, yeah.
If you can walk down and hang out on the dock all day and then go up to the house. But an extra couple $100,000 at the time, it was a lot. It was a lot to stomach.
Sure.
It was an extra couple hundred or a couple $1,000 a month.
Oh, yeah.
So what I recommended she did was, hey, why don't you, if these Canadians, they were the sellers, see if they'd be willing to just take a lease option on the land, but still buy the house.
Sure.
That way, they're not just sitting on this land and having to pay property taxes on all that stuff, and just offer them a couple $100 to lease it, and then with the option to purchase it in a couple of years.
Yeah.
And they took it.
I love it.
So instead of her buying the land as well and spending an extra couple $1,000 a month for a new loan or something like that for that amount, she only spent $200 a month because she was leasing it with the option to purchase it.
I love it.
Meaning she had the first right within 2 years to purchase that land. They couldn't sell it out from underneath her, and she had the full ability to use it.
Yeah.
So it was a win-win because the Canadians didn't have to pay all the taxes on that property. You know, it was able to absorb most of it.
Why didn't they have to pay the taxes?
Because they were getting rental income.
Okay, so
They're
still
getting
had
a
to pay
couple
the taxes, but like it was offset by the lease.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, that's what I meant. Like
yeah.
it was a win-win because like Joe got to use it without having to spend all that extra money a month.
Yeah.
It helped her with her cash flow, and it helped with their cash flow.
Win-win.
And eventually, she bought it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
When she had the extra cash, and I think she did a cash out refi to just purchase that. I could be wrong. Maybe she got a loan, but I know that she was in a position a few years later to just purchase it with cash if needed.
And the lease purchase option, it made sense at that time. This is not something that's going to make sense on every single deal.
No.
But it's something you can keep in mind. Like this can be an option for a very low entry fee to get to a property, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's got to be like, it's just another tool in the toolbox.
Yes.
You know, in this scenario, the lease options seem to work the best because you get the best of both worlds. Like you don't have to buy this property right now, but you can have full control of it.
Right.
For at least a couple of years with the option to purchase it with nobody else using it.
Did Joe ever end up putting stairs down to the?
I think they did do some improvements. I don't know if they did a full set of stairs, but they made a lot of heavy improvements.
Yeah. I bet that property's worth a lot of money now.
It is, yes. And that was the other thing, too. She was locked into a price. And that's a great thing about a lease option.
Yes.
You can be locked into a price without the obligation to purchase it at the end of your time frame. But the seller is obligated to sell it to you.
So they have to sell it to you on a lease option?
Yes.
Okay. So if you're saying, like, if you and I were to make a lease option, right? Say, like, you were going to sell me or put me on a lease option for a house. I have the option to buy it, basically.
Yeah, you pay for the option to buy it.
Okay. And then whether you like it, or whether you say, I don't want to sell anymore or not, like, you have to sell it.
Yeah.
That's what that is. Okay.
Yeah. So, for instance, let's say it's 2018, and I've got a house that's worth $350,000, and I'm willing to do a lease option to you. You can't buy it right now, but you can afford the rent, but you know that you'll have the ability to maybe get a loan in a year or two.
Sure.
Maybe you want a 5-year option, and you'll pay a $10,000 non-refundable option consideration to me, the seller.
Okay.
And that gives you the option, you paid for it, to purchase that property within 5 years.
At the price that we specified.
And there's all these other terms that you can negotiate. Some of the rent could go towards purchasing the property.
Sure.
Or it could just all be leasing until you have the ability to do it.
Okay.
So there's different ways. But the standard formula is you're locking in a price. Then let's say, I know it's worth $350,000, but you're doing a lease option. I'm giving you the privilege to buy this within 5 years. Let's say you can buy it at $400,000.
Sure.
Within 5 years. That's our purchase price. I know it's a premium, but hey, we're doing a lease option. You can act like you own this house. You can paint it if you want. You can make improvements.
Yeah.
If the toilet's leaking, you got to fix it.
Right.
You put in these different agreements where you're acting more as a tenant buyer than just a tenant.
Sure.
And typically what's great about these is that the people that are living in this house and they're paying that extra premium to be there, they act like it's their own house. They take better care of it.
Right. They've almost taken ownership at that point because they have that option to own it. Like, I want to treat this thing as if I'm going to be buying it in 2 years, which is a lot better than a typical renter will treat a property.
So let's say, so it's 2018. We put that agreement together. You get to buy it for $400,000. I'm happy because I'm a seller and I know it's worth $300,000, but I'm selling it for $400,000 within 5 years. 3 years goes by, the thing's worth $500,000.
Yep.
I have to sell it to you for $400,000.
Yeah.
That was our agreement. You don't have to purchase it either.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
And you have till 2023 to get it financed.
I love it.
So that's the beauty of lease options. It can work both ways.
Sure. And is that something that typically, like, you'd be working with people who own the home, I'm assuming, or do they have loans on it, or?
Yeah, typically you're working with the homeowner directly, or a real estate agent. There is an option in the MLS to classify things as lease options.
Oh, cool.
And basically, you would just be in a pending status for a year or 2 or 3 or 4. You could be in a pending status on a lease option for a long time. We don't see them a lot, but it's an option in our MLS to structure these deals as an agent.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then you never have to talk to a seller. You could just be dealing with the agent and the escrow company.
I love it. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Very cool.
All right. Let's see. Let's check our time real quick. We're good for another topic here. I love this. We're doing good.
We're doing great.
We're doing good.
Yeah, this is great. I love all the info, and hopefully
The next segment, we want to talk about innovative investment strategies, and we're going to talk about the BRRRR method, wholesaling, and house hacking, but we're going to breeze through those because we just kind of talked about doing that in some of the other acquisition.
Sure. Yeah. A lot of these strategies are kind of, hand holding with other strategies, and you'll find out the first one we're going to talk about is the BRRRR method. So buy, renovate, rent, refinance, and repeat. It's a term that Brandon Turner or David Green, I'm not sure exactly.
Brandon Turner coined it.
Yeah.
But people have been doing it forever.
Yeah. But the BRRRR method basically is you buy a property, you renovate it, you rent it out, so you get renters in there after it's renovated. Then you refinance, obviously, like it says. With your refinance, hopefully you'll be able to cash out and then buy another property, and that's the repeat part of that.
Yes. So how you do this creatively is typically on a BRRRR property, you have to get a really good deal, or else it's going to be near impossible to refinance the property and pull any cash out without investing more money into it. So I've done this several times where a property that's ideal for a fix and flip is usually ideal as well for a BRRRR if the market makes sense. So you got to look at what's the after repair value,
right?
And if I can get a loan for 70% of that, what's that loan balance going to be? And if I get a loan for that loan balance at today's current interest rates, is it going to make sense? And what is it renting for?
Right.
Is it going to cash flow or not?
Right.
If it's not, maybe just flip the property.
Right.
If it is going to cash flow after you renovate it, maybe it's a good idea to look at the BRRRR strategy.
Yeah.
Because you'll make more wealth over time holding a rental property than you will ever fix and flip homes. That's been my experience, and a lot of guests that we've had on the podcast as well. So, yeah, that's BRRRR in a nutshell. It's a great way to build wealth.
Yeah.
Even with interest rates as high as they are, you just got to find the right deal that makes sense, and you got to figure out what's it renting for. This is going to be more ideal, I think, right now for multifamily.
Yeah, I agree. And with the BRRRR strategy, obviously the whole point would be to get that cash out and refinance. And if you can't get that cash out to refinance, you can still use a down payment from another source and just restabilize this loan. It doesn't mean you can't refinance or can't touch it. But again, going back to the cash out refinance strategy, just run your numbers, make sure it's going to rent for what you think it's going to rent for. Make sure you're putting away all your money you need, and you might end up with a check, you might not, but you can still move forward.
Yes. All right, next one, wholesaling. This is another creative way to buy a property with little to no money.
Yeah.
The difference is you're not buying the property.
Right.
But you're at least involved in a transaction without having to be licensed. And what you do is you find a really good deal, you get it under contract, and you make that contract assignable in some way. Either there's a checkbox somewhere, or you say, if my name's Bradley Lee and or assigns is your new name on that contract. And if you're using an Idaho purchase and sale agreement with a real estate agent, there's a box that they can check, make sure they check it.
Yep.
Almost always, even if you don't intend to wholesale a property, you should almost always check assigns. That way you can, just in case, or if you need to transfer it into a different entity or something like that. But that will give you the ability to, without the seller's additional approval, to sell the contract or assign to somebody else.
Right. So you're basically selling the right to purchase the property, correct?
Yep.
In a nutshell, you're making an assignment fee, so you're selling the right to purchase the original contract for a fee.
Yeah. Or to maybe even simplify it a little bit more, you're just selling the contract.
Yeah. Easy peasy. I love it.
Yep. So we've bought from many wholesalers. Yep. I haven't wholesaled many properties. I think I've wholesaled 2 properties ever. Not like I don't want to do it more. I just get attached to the long-term goal of
and wholesaling sounds great, and it is a great way to get started, especially if you're not if you don't have any money, if you don't have any assets, just go find stuff and see if you can sell the contract to people. It's a great way to get it. And also, if you're going to be wholesaling property, let me know. I'd love to be on your list and maybe see if we can help you.
And I will say this, in real estate, it is the quickest way to make money.
Yes.
absolute fastest way to make money is to wholesale properties.
Yeah. Doesn't mean it doesn't take work, though, because it does.
Yes. When you're getting into buying rentals and fixing and flipping properties, it is not quick money at all.
No.
Not at
Slow
all.
and steady wins the race, though, for sure. And like I think you've said on previous episodes, too, Nick, like if you're flipping, you flip to get rich and you hold to get wealthy, right?
Yeah.
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 Like it's a good way to get money and get that money, but unless you're not, if you're just doing that, you'll never accumulate wealth.
The rich flip, the wealthy hold.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you can wholesale all day, and we know a lot of wholesalers in the area who are doing big volume, but they have other strategies too. So you'll see these other wholesalers who have hold rentals and they have other things they're doing, because flipping and wholesaling is a strategy, but it shouldn't be the strategy because your money will run out. Trust me.
Well, yeah. Once you stop doing deals, all the money goes away.
Right.
It's that simple.
Yep.
Unless you own rentals or you own appreciating assets that spit out cash flow.
Yeah.
And that's the real game, is like try to find properties that will pay you long term every month.
I agree.
When you just focus on wholesaling, it's like you bought yourself a new job.
Yep.
And you can be selling anything, and it's like doing the same thing. You're more of a dealer than you are an investor.
Yeah, and you're trading time for money, like 100%. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong.
You just have to know, like, that's not going to ever make you wealthy.
Yeah.
And everyone's opinion of what wealthy is obviously depending on what that person wants. But yeah, just make sure you have other things happening for sure.
Yes. But it will help you build up the cash to invest in rentals.
Yep.
And that's something that I know a lot of wholesalers that I've spoken to that they always wish they would have just got started earlier buying rentals.
Sure.
And that's almost what it always boils down to after we interview an investor who started in wholesaling and that was their main thing. They almost always end up saying, I wish I would have just got started investing in rentals earlier.
Everyone's doing the best they can, I think. So
Yeah. All right. Next one, house hacking. Big fan of this, especially today. I think this is the ultimate. If there's one thing in this whole list that we're talking about today, I think this one takes the cake for 2024.
I agree. Absolutely. Especially, like we've talked about with interest rates and purchase prices of homes just being high. Yeah. How are you going to offset that purchase price or that interest rate? And like what Nick was saying, like I think personally the most effective way is house hacking, 100%.
Yeah. It's the most easily attainable. If you have a job and you want to buy property, do it. If you want a single family house, you can pull this off with renting rooms, or you build an ADU on the property, or you buy a property that has an ADU. I would so strongly recommend you guys look into this. If you're brand new to this and you just want to be an investor, start here. This is the best way to start because you can get a loan, like an FHA loan, 3.5% down. If you're here in Idaho, and there's a lot of states that do this too, you can get an IFHA loan to go along with that to help with that 3%. So you only need 0.5% down.
That's awesome.
And then you can ask the seller to contribute because it's becoming a buyer's market. You can ask the sellers to contribute to help with all your closing costs.
Yeah.
And you only need, if you do it right, you only need 0.5%. Right. Even if you're not in the military or anything, 0.5% of the purchase price, and then you get roommates or buy a duplex, triplex, fourplex. You can buy these the same way with the same type of loans. Yep. And get the property to pay for itself.
Right. And obviously the goal here, it sounds uncomfy when you think about it. But especially if you don't have a family, if you're a single guy or gal and you're buying a house and say you're approved for the house, awesome. Right. But then you're looking at the mortgage, you're looking at everything. You're like, okay, this is going to be $4,000 a month. I can't afford that, but I know having a house is going to make my net worth go up. Say you buy a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house. You're only going to need one of those bedrooms, right? So rent out the other 3 rooms, figure out what rents are going for in the area, and maybe, just maybe, that'll cover your mortgage.
Yes. Yeah. Now, from a lot of my experience dealing with people that have house hacked, there are plenty of pros and cons to this. It's not all roses.
Yes.
One of the biggest things that I've seen that people regret is that they let family move in with them, assuming that family is going to pay rent.
Yeah, don't do that.
And this may sound harsh, but if your goal is to invest in real estate and become wealthy one day, help out your family when you're wealthy one day. But don't try to help them out too soon, where it's going to hold you back, because it happens so much. Yeah. And you may be thinking to yourself, well, my sister wouldn't do that, or my mom wouldn't do that, or, whatever. But you got to find people that are willing and able to pay the rent. You've done the background on them. You're comfortable with them in your house or on your property.
Yeah.
Or being a next door neighbor in your duplex or something like that. Do the background check on them. Make sure they can qualify for rent, and don't shortcut the vetting process at all.
And you got to keep in mind too, just like you said too, Nick, like this is a business. Like the business is having people, and you're A, providing housing for people, and B, you're also negating how much your mortgage payment should be out of your own pocket. But getting in touch or getting involved with family, I think, like you said, is a very, very bad idea.
Just caution.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be amazing too.
It could be.
And that's one of the great things about house hacking is like you can help family. You can have your mom live with you in an ADU or something like that. But if this is what your goal is to help get the mortgage covered by tenants, usually having family move in with you is a bad idea, because it's hard with family to eventually, when you got to change your mind or do something else or sell, to ask them to move out.
Yeah.
Or when the time comes where, rents, it's time to increase rent again. It's hard to do that with family.
Yeah.
But
It is.
with your average tenant, it's okay to treat them like you agree to, like what the market would treat them like. That sounds horrible, but
No, it's true.
But you can't easily increase rent on your mom every year.
Right. And just kind of taking that one step further too, like, yes, be very, very cautious when dealing with family, but if you have to, get them on real rental agreements. And go through the paperwork you would go through when vetting a normal tenant. Honestly, like, vet their credit, vet this, get them a down payment, like, treat it like a business, right? Because if you don't treat it like a business, they're going to walk all over you.
Yes. And if you are going the route where you have roommates and you're sharing the same common areas, like living, laundry, kitchen, make sure you buy one of those label makers and you give them dedicated cabinets that are just theirs. You give them a dedicated shelf in the fridge that's just theirs. And you let them know where they're allowed to be, where they're allowed to park. You talk about all this up front before you ever let them move in.
Yes.
Make sure that they're comfortable with that and they can do that. And it's all about communication prior to them walking into your house and moving in. And ideally, I mean, if you just can't even think of what to put in an agreement, ask ChatGPT to do it.
Right.
And it will come up with a lot of great ideas. Just prompt it. Hey, I'm going to get a roommate and I want an agreement with this roommate. Can you help me with some basic expectations that we can set?
I mean, you could even take it one step further, and you could get a property manager for your tenants, right?
Yeah.
So, like, hey, this all goes through my property manager. I don't touch it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and if you're that paranoid, you can pretend to be another tenant.
Yeah, I'm just a tenant paying here. You have no idea I own this thing, right? Like,
yeah, you own it in an LLC, and the LLC is owned by another LLC, and then the tenant doesn't have any way of weird tracking to see, do you own this house, or are you just another renter here?
Right.
Yeah,
and that's just the way. Like I said, that makes it so, like, as long as you're following the same rules and not on a high horse about, like, your rules are better than everyone else's or you get special privileges, just live in it with them and coexist. I think it's great.
Yeah. All right. We are running out of time here. Maybe we can talk later, but there are a few other things that we wanted to get into. Partnerships and joint ventures.
Oh, yeah.
We've kind of touched on that a little bit. Self-directed IRAs. Maybe we can talk about that just a little bit before we go.
Yeah.
Because there's a few other things, but we're going on over an hour now, and I know your wife's about to have a kid any minute now.
Hey, just a minute. My phone hasn't been vibrating, so I think I'm fine. But I'll touch real quick on self-directed IRAs if you'd like.
Yeah.
So it is a good option, obviously. Like, if you have an employer or you have, a retirement plan, you can actually utilize this and make it self-directed. So you can buy real estate, you can do notes, you can buy anything other than collectibles and insurance.
Nice.
So you have a lot of options on what you can buy in a self-directed IRA.
Is a car considered a collectible?
A car is considered a collectible.
Dang
yes.
it.
So if
even a classic, it does depend on what kind of car?
A classic car is a collectible, yes.
Okay.
But here's the thing, and you might need additional clarification on this. Say you were to buy a Tesla, and you were to put it on, what's the website that allows you to rent out your car?
Turo.
I think you can, but you should double check on that, because that is a business. And what you need, basically, so if you're buying real estate, or a business or anything like that, you are going to have what's called UBIT in your IRA, which is unrelated business income tax.
Okay.
So if you finance debt, that is.
Yeah.
And that's with most things. But if you're buying out of a solo 401k, this thing goes pretty deep, but I'm not going to, I'm just going to scratch the surface. So self-directed IRA, say you want to buy a house. Typically, you need to get a non-recourse loan on that. So that means you're going to need to have a little bit more in your IRA, so you can't do like a 3.5% FHA loan.
Now, what's a non-recourse loan for those that don't know?
Non-recourse loan means it's not tied to you personally in any way. So basically, on a
I thought that was I thought that meant like if you default on the loan, they won't come after you.
Yes. So it's not me. Like I would not be buying the property. It would be like FBO, Jeremy Kitchen, directed IRA. So it's not me personally buying it, and I'm not giving a personal guarantee. So that's what non-recourse is. There's no personal guarantees.
Personal guarantee.
Yes.
Okay.
And so that has to be a thing. And in order to get a non-recourse loan, you just have to have a little bit more money down.
Okay.
Right. So you can do it. And that's what I'm trying to do building my IRA right now. Right now, I'm just doing promissory notes and getting, 10, 12% annualized interest. But that's all coming back tax-free to me.
How often are you contributing to your IRA?
The contribution limits for single people in 2020-24 are $7,000 a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you put it monthly or do you just dump it in annually?
Typically, what I do is I do monthly, but what I'm doing this year is I'm trying to just build up a lump sum, and until people are ready to invest with me out of my IRA, I'm keeping it in a high yield.
Okay.
Yep. So I'm basically building up a high yield. I've got $7,000 set aside in a high yield, so it's basically gaining interest right now.
Can your IRA be in that high yield?
Nope.
No? Why not?
Because that high yield is attached to me.
Oh,
so if I wanted to, what I could do is I could get a high yield in my directed IRA, but it would be a completely different thing, making 5%.
Okay.
And this is it's coming to me right now, and it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But so if you want you have to get a non-recourse loan, about 30 to 40% down, depending on the lender, and then you're going to have UBIT, which is the unrelated business income tax, if you have debt in your IRA. But if you just buy it outright, you're not going to have that. Cool thing about self-directed IRAs, all tax-free. You never pay taxes on the thing as long as it's there's traditional and Roth. So traditional, you pay taxes when you pull out. Roth, you pay taxes when you put in.
Yeah. Well, you've already paid. This is money you've already paid taxes on.
Yes, money I've already paid taxes on. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that money you can grow it within this Roth, but only right now $7,000 a year.
Yep.
Can you initially start it off with more?
No, unless you already have a different IRA, you can do a rollover.
Okay.
But what you can do, there's a thing called a mega backdoor Roth, and this is basically utilizing your 401k as well.
Okay.
So say if you have a
so if you're so like Hillary's got one, she can roll it into a Roth.
Yep. So typically, what you're going to want to do, you're going to get hit with taxes right off the front. So and just be prepared for that. Yep. Ooh, right off the front.
Okay.
But
so say that makes sense because that wasn't taxed yet.
Right.
It gets taxed and then it can go into this
and it
thing.
Depends on if she has a
and
Roth
grow
or
tax-free.
traditional, and it can grow tax free. But basically, on your 401k, if I'm not mistaken, I think you can put in about $60,000 a year. So you start your 401k, right? You've got $50,000 in it, $60,000, whatever that number is. Mm-hmm. If you were to just start this today, and then you transfer it over into a self-directed IRA. But to be honest with you, if your wife has a 401k already, I would just transfer that into a self-directed 401k because there's no UBIT in 401ks.
What's a UBIT again?
The unrelated business income tax.
Okay, you did say that.
Yeah.
Unrelated
there's
business
other
income
experts
tax.
on this stuff, but this is just a strategy that people can utilize to grow their retirement.
You talk so fluently about this. It's amazing.
I listen to a lot of IRA podcasts. I'm a nerd.
I've been hearing Matt Swarnson. He's constantly showing up in my YouTube shorts.
Yeah.
And I love it.
I love it. He's a smart dude, and we've had him on the episode.
We have had him on the podcast.
So.
Yes.
But yeah, that's basically it. If you want more information, there are definitely experts. I would definitely check out Matt Sorensen and Matt Kohler at Directed IRA, and they have a podcast on it as well. And a great way to buy and accumulate wealth and assets for sure.
Well, before we go, what are you going to have for lunch today?
What am I going to have for lunch? I'm probably going to go... Shit, man, I don't know.
You've got your baby on the mind.
No, I've got... No, I've been trying to meal prep lately, but I've had appointments, so my appointments start as soon as we're done here until about 2.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to eat, man. I didn't bring anything, so...
Okay. Well,
what are you going to eat?
I'm on 75 hard now, so I got to eat healthy stuff.
How many times
whatever
do you have
my
nachos?
wife, none. Zero
Wow.
nachos. I'm
Okay.
back on the zero nacho train.
Wow. Let me know how that goes.
It's pretty good so far. I've lost 4 pounds
Nice.
in the last few days.
You heard it here first, folks. If you don't eat nachos, you lose weight.
Yes, if you're me.
No, but seriously, thank you so much, everybody, for listening and watching this episode. We might do a part 2, and we can find more creative ways to buy and purchase real estate. But definitely, if you've enjoyed this episode, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We love seeing the reviews. We love interacting with you. And it just gets the show more visibility. So please, if you enjoyed this, go leave us a review. We love you for it.
We love you. We love you so much. Sorry we didn't talk about all the strategies, but we'll get to it another day.
I don't think, honestly, if we're going to do a podcast, we can never hit all of the strategies on one thing because there's constantly more being reinvented every single day.
Yeah, there's more. There's at least 7 more I want to talk about.
At least.
So maybe we'll do a part 2.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll call this Creative Financing Part 1.
Maybe we will.
Maybe we won't. All right.
Thank you so much for checking out the Investor Shed podcast. If you enjoyed your time, make sure to leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Follow along on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram at The Investor Shed for shorts and promos about each episode. Do you want to be a guest or know someone who has great real estate investing advice and stories? Reach out to us at theinvestorshed@gmail.com.